Winter is in the past, spring has begun, and I'm Richard.
And I'm Gary, and these are our incredible stories. Hello and welcome back to all of our listeners from around the world and across the United States. We're so happy to have you here with us again. And if you happen to be some of the lucky few that found our podcast and thought, I'll give this a try, welcome. Go ahead, have a seat, get yourself cozy, maybe put on some house shoes and get your favorite drink ready because you're in store for some incredible stories.
Maybe even a snack.
Ooh, I would say a snack. Maybe some of that trail mix or Chex. I love Chex Mix. That's a good one. And go ahead. Don't waste any time. Hit that like and subscribe button because I'm pretty sure you're going to like what we got to offer you. And so just as a reminder, we'll treat you every week free of charge to a free episode on Friday. So don't worry about it. We got you covered.
Yeah, we do hope that you like our stories that we bring you each and every week. We really go to great extremes to try and keep you entertained and informed, and that's our goal because
of course
your time is valuable.
Of course they like our show. That's why they came back.
Yeah.
That's why, I mean, look, see, we've got some familiar, hi, how you doing?
Yeah.
Yep, nope, see, I remember that person right there, of course.
The lights are sparkling all across the globe there on our globe machine.
Oh, no, that's just because you're dehydrated again. You're starting to hallucinate. No, but yeah, of course we got our friendly family and friends on the podcast everywhere.
I love getting together with you folks who are with us. I really do love having you here with us. This evening, we've got something a little different. Last Sunday was the beginning of spring. March 20th of 2022 is the date that spring officially occurred, or began, I should say. Now, that marks not only the first day of spring here in the Northern Hemisphere, it also marks the spring equinox. So I have a question for Gary. What is the spring equinox?
Isn't that when it's the longest day of summer?
Ooh, Gary, I tell you what, you're pretty well informed.
I remember that because we had a friend in Denmark, and if I remember correctly, they have a tradition, like a festival where they burn a witch, like an effigy.
Whoa.
Not a person, but it's like a wicker witch, and it's to represent the longest day of the year. I'll double check on that, but I'm about 99% positive that's exactly what it was.
That's an interesting custom.
Yeah.
Well, here in the northern hemisphere, the sun crosses the equator line and it's heading north, Gary. So the spring equinox marks the start of the spring season in the northern half of the globe. Now, after this date, the northern hemisphere begins to be tilted a little bit more toward the sun. And like you said, that increases our daylight hours, and with daylight you also get an increase in warming temperatures. Now in the southern hemisphere, what do you think's happening?
It's getting dark.
Yeah, it's the opposite. The March equinox marks the start of autumn as the southern hemisphere begins to be tilted away from the sun. So those of you folks who are listening to us from the southern hemisphere, the exact opposite of what we're talking about tonight is happening to you. Now, it happened last Sunday, and I'll give you the exact moment, 11:33 in the morning. That is when the equinox occurred, 11:33 last Sunday. That's when the return of spring occurred here where we are in the northern hemisphere. And where folks who are listening are in the southern hemisphere, you have started autumn or fall. Now, Gary, do you know what the word equinox means?
No. Oh, wait, that's the car I drive. I drive a Chevy Equinox.
Yes,
Is that
you
what you're
do.
talking about?
Yes, you do. But that's, well, you know what? I bet the Chevrolet manufacturers came across the Spring or, whatever Equinox and decided that would make a nice name for a model Chevrolet.
I'm sure they did.
But Equinox, if we go way back, it stems from Latin words for equal night. Equus, equal, nox, night. Equal night. So on the equinox, the length of the day and night is nearly equal in all parts of the world. Now, even though the southern hemisphere, it's beginning of fall, and here it's the beginning of spring, nevertheless, on the equinox, day and night, the length of day and night is equal everywhere.
Wow.
Everywhere. So everyone who is listening at 11:33 in the morning last Sunday, that's our Eastern time here in the United States, everything was equal, night and day. So that means earlier dawns and later sunsets, right, Gary?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Now, for the March equinox, the sun crosses the celestial equator and it's going south to north. It's called the celestial equator because it's an imaginary line in the sky above the Earth's equator. And if you were standing on the equator, the sun would pass directly overhead on its way north.
Oh.
If you were on the equator. Equinoxes are the only two times each year that the sun rises due east and sets due west for all of us on Earth.
Huh.
For all of us on Earth.
How about that?
Yeah. And while the sun passes overhead, the tilt of the Earth is zero relative to the sun, which means the Earth's axis doesn't point toward or away from the sun.
How about that?
Yeah. But also, note this, the Earth never orbits upright because it's always tilted on its axis by about 23.5 degrees. Now we're getting into the weeds of science here. After the spring equinox, the northern hemisphere tilts toward the sun. And although in most locations, like the North Pole and the equator being exceptions, the amount of daylight had been increasing each day after the winter solstice. After the spring equinox, many places will experience more daylight than darkness in each 24-hour day. And the amount of daylight each day will continue to increase until the summer solstice. And that happens when, Gary?
The summer solstice?
Yep.
In the summer?
Yes, it does. Yes, in the summer, of course. It happens.
Are you sure it doesn't happen in the fall?
Yeah, it happens in June. That's during which the longest period of daylight occurs. Now, let me ask you this, see if you know this. The questions are getting tougher and tougher.
Oh.
Does spring begin on March 1st or on the equinox? When does spring begin? On March 1st or on the equinox, which in our case was on the 20th, last Sunday?
Last Sunday?
Yeah, so when does spring begin?
Spring begins in
March 1st or on the equinox?
March.
March 1st? Well, the answer is both.
Oh.
Now,
How's that possible?
Yeah, how is that possible? How is it on March 1st and March 20th? Well, it all depends on your definition of spring, Gary. Both dates are accurate. They're just from different perspectives, and here's the explanation. Astronomically speaking, the first day of spring is marked by the spring equinox, and that falls on March 19, 20, or 21 every year.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Now, the equinox happens at the same moment worldwide, as I've already mentioned, although our clock times reflect a different time zone. And as mentioned, this date only signals spring's beginning in the northern hemisphere. It announces fall's arrival in the southern hemisphere. I think I've made that pretty clear by now. Interestingly, due to time zone differences, Gary, there isn't a March 21 equinox in the mainland U.S. during the entire 21st century. So you will have to live till the 22nd century if you want to celebrate a March 21st equinox here in the mainland United States.
Oh. Interesting.
And we're not going to see a March 21 equinox again until 2101.
Oh, wow.
So I think that's out for both of us. Meteorologically speaking, the official first day of spring is March 1st. So that's why that's also correct. Meteorologically. Weather scientists divide the year into quarters to make it easier to compare seasonal and monthly statistics from one year to the next. So the meteorological seasons are based on annual temperature cycles rather than on the position of the Earth in relation to the sun. That's why you have the two dates. So they more closely follow the Gregorian calendar. That's an interesting story of itself, the Gregorian calendar.
Don't they do chants?
Yep. All right. So are day and night equal on the equinox? No, but they're quite close to equal. In reality, day and night are not exactly equal on the equinox for two reasons. First, daytime begins the moment any part of the sun appears over the horizon. And it's not finished until the last part of the sun disappears below the horizon. So if the sun were to shrink to a star-like point and we lived in a world without air, the spring and fall equinoxes would truly have equal nights.
And we would be dead.
Yeah, that's right. Now, according to folklore, can you stand a raw egg on its end on the equinox?
Yes.
Why? Are you just guessing?
No, because you can do the same thing with a broom. You can stand a broom on its bristles. But I found out something very interesting. You can stand a broom on its bristles anytime. Nothing special with the magnetic poles and gravity or anything like that. And you can stand an egg on its end if you put some salt on the table.
Okay. Well,
it's a trick.
Guess what? This egg folklore thing is not ancient or old legend or lore. Actually, it didn't become popular until 1945.
Yeah, because they were trying to sell eggs.
And actually, it followed a Life magazine article. I remember Life. That was one of my favorite magazines.
Buy our eggs, they'll stand on their end.
Yeah. So the origin of the myth is attributed to stories that the ancient Chinese would create displays of eggs standing on end during the first day of spring.
Can you imagine how magnificent that was? A whole row of eggs just standing on end.
Yeah, the ancient Chinese celebrated the first day of spring about 6 weeks earlier than the equinox, not just on the equinox itself. And as with most folklore, Gary, it's only partly true. You should be able to balance an egg on its end on the equinox, but it's possible to balance an egg on other days too.
Lies.
Yeah.
Lies.
So, I know, folklore or not, the egg trick sounded like a lot of fun to me.
Were you going to stand one on its end?
I bet
Here, wait. I have an egg right here. Wait, hold on. Let me get it. No, wait.
Do not let that fall and splatter.
Hang on. This is not rotten, is it?
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I hardly want to breathe there. It'll just knock over. Gary, what's it doing? Describe to our listeners what's happening with the egg.
Well, the egg is just sitting there. It's not doing anything. It's just sitting on the table. And it looks like an egg. I hope this was thrilling for all of you. I know that I found it just as exciting.
Well,
The egg is just sitting there.
Now, folks, you can try this trick for yourself.
Oh, great. Now it fell over. Good job.
Try this for yourself, and I'm going to give you a tip that Gary didn't share with you. You're probably going to have better luck than he did.
Put salt on the table, right?
If you try it on a rough surface, or use an egg that has a bumpy end.
A bumpy end. I wouldn't eat that egg.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right.
That's a little harder to find, but try putting it on a rough surface, and you'll have better luck standing that egg on end. Go ahead and try it. Not now, but when the podcast is.
Oh, I'll give it a shot. Now,
right.
I found what I was talking about, what I was telling you about.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody in Denmark's going to get very mad at me because I'm going to mispronounce this, but I'm trying my best. Believe me, I'm putting a lot of effort into trying to say this correctly. Sankt Hans, also known as Midsummer Eve, as it is known in Denmark, is often spent on the beach with a huge bonfire. Midsummer's Eve is celebrated on the 23rd of June, and like Christmas, the festival day is a reminder of old pagan customs. It is a celebration of the longest summer day and the shortest winter day of the year. And they burn a large effigy of a witch that is a wicker witch to celebrate that.
I think that's very unusual. We have our
Fascinating.
Halloween, and they have their midsummer. What is it called? Midsummer.
It's
what?
Midsummer Eve.
Midsummer Eve.
I'll spell it out for you. The first word is Sankt.
Sankt
Hans.
Hans.
Sankt Hans.
Sankt Hans.
Hopefully I pronounced that correct enough.
Yeah.
But it's not really Halloween though. It's a celebration of the changing of the season and the longest day, like it says here, the longest day of summer and the shortest day of winter. And so it's imagine you're in a place where you're further up north, so it stays chilly longer. And so you're saying adios to that cold weather and hello summer.
I don't think the folks in Denmark say adios.
I don't know. There could be some people who live there that might have Spanish ancestry. You don't know that. Come on. We're in 2022. Let's not be judgmental. And if you are in Denmark and you choose to speak Spanish, well, good for you. That's a way to stand out and be a little different.
Yeah. So whether you're in Denmark listening tonight or somewhere else, Gary and I are going to share some ideas to wrap up our podcast. We're going to share some ideas on how you can celebrate spring. Go outside and look around. Springtime. Get on out of the house. Get rid of that cabin fever. And look around and see if worms and grubs are reappearing. Because you know what? The March full moon is called the worm moon for this very reason.
Sounds like a horror movie.
Yeah. And watch the arc of the sun across the sky as it shifts toward the north. Birds are migrating northward along with the path of the sun.
Oh.
So watch the birds migrate.
Yeah.
And are you noticing that the days are getting longer? Did you know that the increasing sunlight inspires birds to sing?
Oh, beautiful little birdies.
Yeah, I love birds. And so we are looking forward to more songs from the birds as the sunlight increases.
Yes, and if you live in Florida, you're looking forward to hurricane season because guess what? We're in it. And so we may have worms crawling on the ground.
That's a little ways away. This is March.
May. May is when it starts.
No,
May,
June.
Yeah.
June.
Are you sure? I'm Googling that real quick.
So anyhow, daffodils, are they poking up their heads? Trees, shrubs, and flowers are sensitive to temperature and day length, too. And since ancient days, people have used natural events as indicators of when the weather is right for planting. So, for example, if a blooming crocus is your cue to plant radishes, parsnips, spinach. Gary, can you feel the sun getting stronger? The longer days bring high temperatures. Both we and the animals around us discard our warm clothes and heavy coats.
Oh, I thought that was just because of global warming.
And last but not least, let me ask our listeners, do you plan to garden? The first day of spring is a traditional day to start in the garden. There's nothing more restorative. I have dear friends in Salzburg, Austria, actually Eugendorf, Austria, near Salzburg. And they have a beautiful garden that they've started. And so this is the time. This is the time to get out there in the garden and get those plants planted.
Yes. And
wonderful time of the year.
June 1st is hurricane season, so we're right in the middle of it.
Almost.
I'm hearing some rumbling outside right now. I'm willing to bet that there's something brewing.
All right.
Because we live in Florida, but wait 5 minutes and the weather will change. All right. As for right now, though, before I go grab the parka and start boarding up the windows for our next hurricane, what is it, Hurricane Harry or something like that? Who knows?
Who knows?
I'm Gary.
Oh, and I'm Richard, and thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome to the spring.
Yes, and enjoy the longest day.
Which is
spring.
already occurring.
Oh, wait, darn it, we already missed it. Okay, well, we'll catch it next time.